Welcome to Thursday, April 17th, 2025. Your Day Weather Podcast brought to you by ConverseCountyTourism.com. Feel the energy at Converse County. Explore Douglas's Railroad Heritage, Ayers Natural Bridge, and the Jackalope Legend. Glen Rock boasts scenic trails, dinosaur history, and small town charm. Plan your visit at ConverseCountyTourism.com. Well, it's just classic springtime in the Rockies where the weather pendulum goes back and forth. We get used to some warmer weather, then all of a sudden winter weather returns. And boy, it really will be very wintry over the next 72 hours across the northern and central Rockies. So those pretty spring clouds with those mild temperatures will be looking a lot different. The cold front in the trough is coming through about as expected. There's been no change in the overall configuration of things. Cold air coming out of the Northwest Territories, merging with a slug of Pacific moisture, and having all of that come together over the highest elevations of the central and northern Rockies, causing a good lifting mechanism, going to produce areas of rain, snow, sharply colder temperatures. As we mentioned yesterday, right along just either side of the Continental Divide is where the moisture is going to be the hardest hitting, with snow levels falling pretty far, down to 5,000 feet or less in many areas. The heaviest moisture is going to want to be along the higher terrain. This is not a persistent upslope, big storm pattern that you get in spring. So this isn't the big one, but this is the start of a weather pattern change that hopefully means more, as it will stay unsettled next week. I think next week, off and on next week, is going to be a good way to use the phrase April showers, as we are going to be looking at frequent days of instability and occasional showers and thunderstorms. Also, I want to talk about what is something we occasionally bring up here in the podcast, and that's the MJO, or what's also known as the Madden-Julian Oscillation. It's much easier to say MJO. We'll talk about that and how it plays a part in the long-range trends. Taking a look at the weather before the changes yesterday, lots of fair skies, green alfalfa there popping on up and growing in the warmer temperatures. If you ever wanted to know what the official terms were for a contrail, and contrail clouds, Jan Curtis has provided those there in the upper left-hand corner. As you can see, the contrails spreading out, a good indication of the spreading of the clouds aloft like that, of a changing weather pattern as the air spreads out ahead of approaching troughs of low pressure as you go up into the higher altitudes. Beautiful shot there out of northwest Colorado. And then you can see some of the looming moisture coming in from the western areas yesterday. They're from Utah and coming in into California. That Pacific moisture is pretty impressive with this system that is being brought in. And yesterday we did have weak showers and isolated thunderstorms that caused a lot of downdrafts, microbursts, caused a lot of delays at DIA yesterday because of strong outflow winds. That's just a sign of the weather pattern wanting to change. But the bigger changes are arriving now. So we had talked earlier in the week about how there was just going to be a convergence of things kind of going southwest to northeast. And there you can see the clouds building. Got a big thunderstorm complex in northeastern Kansas and Missouri out ahead of it as well. And the water vapor shows a nice feed. You see that feed of moisture? Two feeds coming in off the Pacific, being brought in to the central and northern Rockies. At the same time, on the ground, much colder Canadian air is funneling in. So convergence of vectors, so to speak, of a lot of different weather elements. And there you can see from the surface chart this morning, the cold front boundary has made its way all the way to the Colorado border, with high pressure and colder air coming in on the back side of it, there's your upslope pattern into southern areas of Montana and northern Wyoming this morning, and also getting in behind the front. These are the advisories for weather across the lower 48. You can see that basically in this area I'm outlining, these are all for winter storm conditions. Snow, wind, falling temperatures. We have red flag warnings and strong winds on the backside of the system for New Mexico, West Texas, southeast Colorado, and western Kansas. Although a lot of this weather up here will move into these areas tonight and into the day on Friday. You can see a lot of Wyoming is under a lot of pink and blue there. The pink is a winter storm warning where the snow will be the heaviest, where the snow will be a bit more moderate, will be in those bluer areas there. If you're not in pink and blue, it doesn't mean you're not going to get winter weather. It's just the areas that are pink and blue will be the most impacted. There you can see the oblong shape of the low, the convergence of events right there. That basically hasn't changed at all over the last several days. After the computer models, as we talked about last week, just being schizophrenic, a lot better agreement of things coming together here over the next several days. We wanted to show you that feed of moisture. We saw it on the satellite imagery, but you can see it's not extensive, but it's getting channeled right along this boundary here. This is for noon today, and then that general flow of moisture will continue through about noon tomorrow. And you can see the pattern stays kind of stagnant. There's a little southward shift of the pattern, but over the next 24 hours, the same basic air mass stays overhead. So when we take a look at precipitation potentials, we're going to use the national blend of models here to kind of average things out a little bit. But as we have been mentioning, there are kind of a couple of areas where the heavier moisture will be, right along the Montana-Wyoming border, the Beartooths, the Bighorns there. Then we have this other area along the Pine Ridge near Lusk, through Casper, the Owl Creek Mountains in Thermopolis, back into the Wind River Mountains. And then right here where there's just going to be a better concentration of moisture and upslope going into these areas here. Now, lighter amounts as you get into the plains. Would like to see more moisture, but notice that once you lose the lift of the mountains, the pattern is not as favorable for the precipitation east of that black line there. There will be some, but it's going to be along on either side of the Continental Divide. Nonetheless, it's moisture. Beggars can't be choosers. We're going to take it. And it is definitely going to be cold enough that you can see there will be snow accumulations. Now, take these numbers with a grain of salt because there's going to be melting. This is the model just predicting if things were freezing or below and things would stick. But you can certainly see the pink areas where the snow is going to be concentrated in the heaviest. Obviously, we're going to have problems along the I-80 corridor from maybe the Nebraska state line all the way to the Utah state line, the I-70 corridor through the mountains of Colorado, then of course all of the mountain passes where you see the pink and the blue. Temperatures, burr. These are the temperatures, the overnight low temperatures early tomorrow across the Intermountain West. See a lot of pink there. A lot of areas are going to be far below freezing. You can see some areas in the teens. And then as skies clear out a bit, with some areas with snow on the ground, these are very cold April temperatures Saturday morning. So hopefully you haven't run out and bought your petunias yet. Not quite time to do that. Now this will leave a cold air mass overhead, so it's going to be a cool Easter weekend. So this is Easter Sunday. The low does get kicked out. We're going to see some rain and thunderstorm activity here on Easter Sunday, probably some severe weather. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But then we start to see a parade of not big waves, but little waves come in behind this one for next week. So what will happen next week is that we're going to see just kind of a parade of smaller systems coming through. Each of these little waves will cause moisture to get pushed through, and it will cause instability. Hence, occasional chances of showers and, yes, thunderstorms will be found next week across the north central and the western areas of the United States. We don't see an organized storm next week, but several little systems that will keep moisture and instability in place. So that's Monday, this is Wednesday, and so if you look at the 5-day average of temperatures, Monday through Friday of next week, you can see that it's generally cool. Now, it's going to be a little bit warmer out in the plains, but generally speaking, cool April weather for the last 10 days of the month. With that coolness is going to be occasional showers and thunderstorms. Take this with a grain of salt. This is the 5-day precipitation from Monday through the weekend, basically the period of time from early next week into next weekend. Wherever you see green, wherever you see blue and the darker colors, the chances are a little bit better. But these areas of moisture could shift around a little bit. The general point here, though, is there's going to be opportunities for showers. And you're going to get pockets where the moisture will be a little heavier, a little bit lighter, but the chances of April showers and thunderstorms next week with an overall general coolness should be expected. Now, at the end of the podcast here, I want to talk about the MJO because this is a big player in the weather in Western North America. We've brought this up before, and it can seem a little bit confusing. But when you read the definition of the Madden-Julian oscillation here, basically what we're doing is we're tracking areas of tropical activity. When I mean tropical activity, basically clouds, thunderstorms, stormy patterns in the tropics. This may seem a little bit out of bounds, but the tropics of the Pacific and the Indian Ocean end up affecting how precipitation events on a large scale over a 30 to 60 day period will occur across North America and other parts of the globe. And what we do is we have 8 of these different phases, and we put it into a graphic like this. So there's phase 1, there's phase 3, then it goes all the way to phase 8. And so what we do is we go into these phases in a counterclockwise situation. So we rotate through the phases. Each of these 8 phases we identify with climatological history of what happens when the Pacific and the Indian Ocean go through these areas or these pulses of thunderstorm and stormy activity. So when we are in these different phases, we can correspond that with what's happened in the past. The numbers you see here in the black line and the colored lines represent dates. So if we start looking at where we have red, blue, and purple here is where we are right now. And what I wanted to point out is we've been talking about a weather pattern change here late April into early May. What is helping to move along the weather pattern change is we're changing phases in the MJO. We're going from right on the border here of a phase 6, rotating counterclockwise into a phase 7. By the 21st of April, we're well into 7. Okay, so you see the 1 here? This is by May 1. So we basically rotate out of 6 into 7, and then we go into 8. Then what we do is we look at climatology. And we look at the temperature anomaly in a phase 7. Look on the left side here. Wherever you see the blue or that's where it's going to be cool. The historical trends say that's where it'll be cool. The yellow where it's going to be warm. This is kind of where we're in right now, going from 6 into 7, where we've had an episode of warmth. It's been cooler and rainy in this part of the country here. That's exactly what's happened. And the heavier precipitation that has fallen does sort of match up with this in the phase 7. Again, these are used as not a forecast tool, but what the tendencies are. So where you see the green in the precip, that's where the tendencies are for better precipitation historically when we see these different phases of the MJO. So if we're moving through 7, which is what's happening now, and then we go into 8, you can see that things change. 8 is a cool signal in the west, and it's a more wet signal as well, from the Dakotas through the Rockies, even through the southern plains in the southwestern United States. So if you just use this as a general pattern, not looking at specifics or getting down to exact amounts of rain, exact amounts of snow, what you see in these large changes with the MJO is a pattern shift that should lead to a trend to one thing or another. So this means that late April into early May, the phase 8 type of weather should become, let's say, more of a prominent pattern than what we've been in here right there. So we'll just see how it goes, and we'll keep track of it for you. Have yourself a very good Thursday. Hope you know where you kept your jacket.